Here we go. Okay. Welcome everybody to Thanatology Themes. I'm Carolyn, your host, therapist, and thanatologist. So we have a great guest today. I'm so excited. But first I want to bring up our handbook of thanatology. So one of the things that we talk about in here is burnout. This book talks really specifically about burnout for clinicians. We also talk about burnout for caregivers. And this amazing book, which we're going to talk about, I've recommended to many clients, many who come to me for grief, but I have other clients who come for other things as well. So all around, I've found this book so helpful for myself, for clinicians, and for so many clients. Okay. So I just like to tie that all in. So I am now going to introduce the author, Charlene Rhymsha. LCSW is the founder of Everyday Coherence, a psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and the creator of the Say Goodbye to Burnout method. Awesome. She has formal training in clinical social work, mindfulness, and somatic modalities, all of which I do as well. So I love your work. And you have an integrative approach using compassion and evidence-based practice. You write that in the book. That's on my website. So I love you and I are very simpatico.
I love that.
And I'm just going to start. So this is the name of the book, Burn Bright, Heal Yourself from Burnout and Live with Presence, Purpose, and Peace. I also want to add, it's so pretty. As you can tell, I've done my homework and we're going to go into it. I'm going to let Charlene talk in a second. But it's really, really pretty. It's really the graphics are awesome. It's colorful. It's really digestible. And, I'm trying to show people here. So we'll go more into that. I love the presentation of it. Okay, I'm talking a lot.
I'm hearing you talk.
Well, thank you. Thanks for being here. So one thing I did want to introduce, you actually say this, and I feel like the theme, which I think is so important, is burn bright, not burn out. Do you agree? Am I right? What do you, and you probably even wrote that, but it really stuck with me. Can we just start with that?
We absolutely can. And actually, one of the working titles was Burn Bright, Not Out, because that is the biggest theme here. It's really about sustainable well-being, about sustainable energy, about really, sustainable mental health, living a balanced life where you honor rest and enjoy rest just as much as action and productivity to be able to let your inner light shine through. So you get to burn bright, not be going through these periods of action and then, lots of productivity, lots of action. And then say, especially someone that works a Monday through Friday job, finding themselves just, cemented to the couch all weekend long, right? That is more of the burnout than the burn bright phase. So we want to be able to create that practice of action and rest throughout every single day in order for there to be more of that sustainability to truly burn bright, not burn out.
Yeah, love that. And you really do go through the book, and we're going to kind of go through it and talk about it. But I loved that theme. It just really, we're going to start with, as you can see, I love this book. Okay, so one of the things I want to start with is the science behind burnout. I do try to talk about this with my clients, but you talk about the parasympathetic nervous system, cortisol, the modern stress tigers. Will you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yes, I absolutely will. I also feel like just commenting, I love that you recognize, and we'll get to the stress tigers in a moment. I love that you commented and recognized the feel of the book and the
Yeah.
brightness of it, right?
Yeah.
Because the publishing company that reached out to me to ask me to write the book, Quarto Publishing, is absolutely an incredible publishing company, and they have their own art department. So I actually, as much as I love color and brightness, and I'm an abstract artist and actually incorporate a lot of those colors into my work, they were the ones that designed the book. And from the get-go, when I spoke with the editor about, whether I was going to write this book and all that, was he wanted something that was more approachable, right? It's like people are burnt out or burning out. They don't necessarily want a thick textbook that is just really, right, that kind of drowns you even more in it. And so having the environmental stimuli of like a book that has like a nice feel, each page, as I know, has like a nice thick feeling, soft feeling to it, and the fonts that they chose and the colors. So really inviting in that environment within the book, but also inviting the environment of all the different ways that we can allow that kind of external stimuli to soothe our burnout, soothe our experience.
It's so true. And and I actually really like that the book is a little bit smaller. It's not, and that is nice. Well, I have very little hands, but but it's nice that it is a little bit smaller and it feels more doable. You can see I highlighted all over. The highlights are mine. But it really is true. And one of the things that I love, and maybe I should have mentioned that you have tips and exercises, which I am going to talk about, but it does, this is actually the tiger, your stress tigers right here. So it really helps you go through it. And I really like it's really inviting and yeah, like you said, easier to read. And they did a great job. They really did a wonderful job of incorporating all of it's form and function work together for this
Yes.
book. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you for allowing me to share my thoughts on that piece. Yeah. So the stress tigers, right? Yes. As you pointed out in the book, there's an area to exercise. You can write it in the book, of course, or you can write it in a journal. I also have an accompanying journal called Healing Burnout that allows, right, that has many pages so you can go through and write down your different stress tigers. So basically, in a way, stress tigers is a play on words because, right, many of us are familiar now with the idea of triggers, right? What is something? It could be an external stimuli, such as you receive an unexpected email from your boss. Or it could be an internal trigger, such as a memory about your past or whatever it is that trigger then gets your nervous system hijacked to where you either go into the fight, flight, or freeze response, right? And so neurobiologically, we are hardwired from back in the Neanderthal times to be really paying attention, to be survivalist, right? We survive to this day for many reasons because of our survivalist strategies way back then, right? So the proverbial saber-toothed tiger these days, which was a literal saber-toothed tiger back then, had the autonomic nervous system responding before you even had time to think, oh my goodness, there's a tiger. What should I do? The body has the automatic response. And so all of us have a tendency towards a default response to a trigger, or as I like to call them, stress tigers. Again, a play on words with a saber-toothed tiger, and then recognizing it as, oh, this is a perceived threat in our modern environment. I'm not actually going to be killed by the saber-toothed tiger, but our nervous system doesn't know differently. So whether it's that email from your boss, whether it's a distressing memory, whether it's whatever your current stress tiger is, your nervous system is responding from a survivalist place. So your survivalist comes in saying, oh my God, I think I'm going to die. And again, right, we know intellectually that we are not in danger of dying, but, or most of the time, maybe if you were almost stepped in front of a bus or whatever your circumstances, but 99.999% of the time, You are not in danger of being, of dying of physical death in that moment. But again, the nervous system is responding as if you are. And so that's where being able to start to identify, okay, what are my stress tigers in a given day and in certain domains of life? And in the book, I split it up into different domains in there. Right. And I remember back, I'm thinking about when I was doing this exercise and kind of talking to my editor about it. He's like, well, why don't you list out a bunch of different stress tigers? And I said, I could, but it's very individual to each person. It could be pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of potential stress tigers, would then fill in the blanks afterwards. So then I came up with the idea around it of putting it into categories and domains to help people to focus on it, right? So what are my home stressors? What are my relationship stressors? What are my work stressors? What are my commute stressors? What are my ... stressors, right? The stress tigers. And so the more that we can start to recognize, well, one, that all humans have stress tigers.
Yeah.
And when I can begin to name them, they're less abstract and more, in a sense, like categorical. So it helps our prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of our brain, to go, oh, this is what's going on. Oh, when I get this email from my boss, oh, that's a stress tiger. And then the next step is then going, how is my body reacting to this? Yeah. So how is my nervous system reacting to this? Am I getting the sweaty palms? Do I want to run away, right? Do I want to flee? Or do I want to get defensive and fight? Or do I want to just do nothing and crawl up in a ball?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, you just named so many important things that, and one of the things I like, because I really think that when you said individual, it's so true. One of the things I say is that we want to give people tools and techniques, which is what you're doing, but they know within them what it is, right? So we're kind of guiding them. And I love that you picked the domains, but you're right, it's very particular to them, their situation, all of these different things, right? So I love that. And I think that's so helpful. I also agree. I always, I try to say name it to tame it, right? You did it in a really great way, but you're no, I love it. So I do want to get into, of course, the somatic piece. So I also wrote, and I have to go back and look, holistic healing principles on page 18. Do you remember what that was? I'm gonna
Ooh, I think so, but let me see, because it's been a little while since I've personally read my book. Yep.
Okay.
I think it's really, if I remember correctly, it in a way, it's very CBT informed. And so, some of your listeners will know what cognitive behavioral therapy is. Some may not, but really working with the idea of the cognitive triangle, right? And how our emotions, how a stress tiger shows up, and that we have an emotional response, we have thought responses, and then we have behavioral responses. And when we can start to really acknowledge all of those aspects and how it affects our body and our mind and our spirit, and then really allowing all of that to be that holistic approach. Well, what am I feeling? What are the thoughts that are contributing to the feelings? And then also within the feelings and the emotions is the sensations in the body. And then what is my behavior and action that I'm taking? And can I actually reconsider if it's an action that doesn't fully help me? Can I reconsider it? If I'm having thoughts that don't really help me, can I reconsider those thoughts? And then with the emotions, I don't suggest denying any of the emotions. So it's not like that's not a valid emotion, stop it, is validating it, but also even allowing, can I breathe with the sensations, right? We'll talk more about the somatic piece of it. Can I have a different relationship to my emotional state? So it's that acknowledgement of the integration, that it is all aspects of that holistic approach to the healing.
Yeah, I think that's really important. And connected to that, you wrote, there's the 3-word mantra. which I love this. I also will sometimes say anchoring phrase, but it's kind of the same thing. And I just love the way, so this is a really good example of one of the exercises, how you, I mean, I'll just say you wrote out objective, time and frequent, you know, there's step 1, step 2, step
Mhm.
3. And I love how the book has this, yeah, do you want to just talk about that for a second? How you give people the tools to create these exercises for themselves.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that's an important piece of it. It kind of ties back to what you said a few minutes ago of giving people tools to acknowledge that they have the inner wisdom
Yeah.
and the ability to find the answers, inside of themselves. And I think most therapists work with that piece of it and helping people recognize it's not about the therapist having really smart things to say or providing these tools that will change your life or that we are empowering you. Nope. We are here to guide and create that supportive environment to help you remember that you actually have everything that you need inside of you. And so allowing these tools to be a way to acknowledge that, to practice that, to find your own sense of empowerment.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a little different, but sometimes in my session, a client might say something and I'll write it down and I'll say, you said this. To me, it sounds like a mantra, it's up to you, but do you know you said this like brilliant thing? And they'll be like, really? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, and of course I let them, and then they're like, oh, wow. Yeah. But I really hear it and it came from them. Right.
Yes.
But like you said, I think I needed, then they'll keep talking. And then we go back and I'm like, you said this thing, it was great, So
Yeah.
anyway, just wanted to add that piece.
Yes, yes. Reflecting back their brilliance.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes, exactly. I
Yep.
love that.
Yeah.
So oh gosh, where is this? Oh, so would you share with us, you wrote why I wrote this book.
Mm-hmm.
Would you share that with us right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, in a way, why I wrote this book was an editor from a publishing company reached out to me on Instagram and asked me to write the book. In a sense that, right, that's like the practical kind of like objective aspect of it. I didn't necessarily intend to write a book. I know many therapists, many coaches, right? A lot of people aspire to write books on what they're working on and what they're doing. But consciously that wasn't one of my aspirations. And then when it became a possibility and an offering, then it was like, yeah, why do I want to write this book? Because understanding our why behind why we do things is really valuable and really important, right?
Yeah.
And so a book is a beautiful way, I feel like, to reach a lot more people, of course, as we know, than say one-on-one or even group work. And it just felt really important to be able to share these, I would say, simple but not easy concepts of let's spend more time in our bodies, right? We live in a very intellectually, society where this from the neck up is really valued and that success is derived from our intellect, right? Neck up. And there's so much wisdom in our bodies that I was like, this just needs to get out there more and more and more in the world. And I know for myself, I found that through different modalities. Yes, there's amazing books already out there. There's probably more books that are coming, but I wanted to be able to offer it in my voice and in my own experience and own way. So it just felt like a giving back to provide a practical guide that is rather user friendly. And I gather that that's part of what you enjoy and about it, and where I receive a lot of feedback from my clients, but also like say on the Amazon reviews, people that I've never met before saying that this book has really resonated with me. I love how you're able to break it down in these simple, actionable ways that make, right, these mental health ideology more available and practical to me on a daily basis. So really that's it, is I want people to be able to experience their version of success, their version of what a high quality, visceral, experienced life looks and feels like for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. We work with everybody individually. So you also had written in the book, and I do love this, and we're going to jump ahead, the floating head.
Yes. Yes.
I got that, loved it. And I think I mean, it's me too. I think it's our modern society probably. And also, most people, a lot of even our jobs is like, right. Yeah. So you kind of just talked about that. Do you want to? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. The floating head syndrome. And I believe that even in my book, I credited one of my clients for that. I didn't name her
Yeah.
by name because,
Right.
confidentiality and stuff, but I had been working with her for a while. She was in tech, really, moved up into higher and higher positions in management and supervising a lot of people. And what she realized through us working together and her own experience was that she and pretty much all of her colleagues suffer from what she dubbed, which is just so brilliant, the floating head syndrome, right? So the idea being that all of our attention, all of our sense of worth, all of what we tend to do, again, is from the neck up, and that the body is just this an kind of semi-annoying vessel that gets us from place to place. And so this was pre-pandemic when she spoke of that. So she and other people were, physically in the office. And so, right, the idea that the body physically walks you over to the conference room, it physically walks you over to these different areas. You physically sit at your desk, right? That the body itself is just this way to be able to move your head around. And for the most part, because it is the floating head syndrome, you kind of don't even notice that your body has a part in your daily life.
Right.
And the only time that we tend to start to recognize that is when it starts to give us problems, because our bodies are always speaking to us. But usually they're speaking more at a whisper, like, hey, I'm here. Here we are, right? And then certainly it speaks to us through our nervous system's response, the fight, flight, when the stress tigers come in and that type of a thing. But even at those moments, it might be like, oh, I don't like that feeling, suppress it, avoid it, do something else. Let me stay in my head. Let me scroll TikTok real quickly, whatever it is. And then going, oh, okay, my body, I don't feel my body as much anymore. So, okay, I'm good. I'm back in my floating head. And so a big piece of burnout recovery and also preventing burnout is starting to be able to listen to the subtle ways that our bodies are speaking to us, such as, hey, you know what? We could use a glass of water. Okay, I'm going to go get a glass of water. Hey, you know what? We could use a 5-minute get up from the desk, move around, feel your body, stretch a little bit. So it doesn't necessarily have to be screaming at you to get your attention. So basically, yes, backing up to the floating head syndrome that many of us, even the most aware and embodied people, when we get busy with whatever it is, right, as therapists, with clients, whatever it is, it can be like, oh, that's right, wait a minute, I have a body and it's important for me to listen to it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And one of the things I do in all my sessions is when we start the session, I say, would you like to jump in, or do you want to take a breath together? And if people want to jump in, I've been waiting all week to tell Carolyn, that's fine. But almost every person says, I need to take a breath. Let's take a breath, I do like a, I don't know, 60-second, body breath. It's not a long thing, right? But just, it's good for me. It's good for them. We attune and we take a second. And like I said, it's not a long thing. It's just, and, I think a lot of my clients look forward to it, we'll take a breath together, we whatever, right? Okay, I'm here. This is where I landed, right?
Yes. I think a few really important things you just said there is it doesn't have to take a long time. It could be 60 seconds or less.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like the idea that I don't have time to relax, right?
Right.
Is your nervous system on that hijacked, overloaded place where it's just go, 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 not realizing that actually slowing down, if we want the goal to be more productive, that when we slow down, we're actually we're actually more productive.
And you talked about that, and we can jump to that. If let's go with that flow, right? And I
Mhm.
love that you did, and I'm looking for it in my notes. I have all my notes here, but maybe
Love
you
it.
want to just kind of jump to that. The idea, I love that you wrote that, the idea of, and I do even sometimes try to say this to myself or say this to clients, but you wrote it in such a better way. So if you can talk about it, that would be great.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting piece. It's kind of allows for when we can really start to practice it. It's really kind of a win-win-win-win situation, right? Is as humans, most of us humans want to live, if not all, want to live a life of purpose and meaning, and also feel deeply worthy, right? At the root of all of this is the wanting to feel deeply worthy. And so we were taught, most of us from a young age, in all different ways, that you need to produce, you need to be doing great things, you need to be doing X, Y, and Z in order for your life to have meaning. And then the deeper piece of that, of that I am worthy and lovable because I have done these things in my life and I've produced these things in my life, and that can be that daily drive to produce, produce, produce. And so it's not necessarily by any means a negative thing to want to create meaning in your life,
Mhm.
right? I think that's important. I think that's important for
Yeah.
all of us.
Yeah.
But the piece of that belief that I need to be continuously productive to for myself to feel that worthiness, to then have meaning in my life, can be that very slippery slope where you're always grasping for productivity, grasping for more. So I'm kind of sharing a couple of different ideas here, right?
Yeah.
Is kind
Yeah.
of that recognition around productivity is certainly not a bad thing, but it's that recognizing what is the drive underneath for me to be so productive. Is it that feeling of I'm not enough, so I need to continue to produce? Or is it, wow, I feel like I am enough now, and I'm really passionate about what I'm working on. And it can wax and wane, and it can be a little bit of all of it. It's, we're dynamic, we're humans, etc. Like that recognition, right? And so within the pursuit of productivity, what can be really helpful for clients, especially before people have started to embody the I'm enough now, and can I work and produce from that place more of enoughness and passion than the I have an empty place that I'm trying to fill, is when we're working towards that piece of it, which that's deeper, longer work, is the how can I start to recognize the value of rest as much as action and productivity. And so in a way, it can be a bit of a brain hack, where research has shown, right? Productivity research has shown that the more that you produce, the more that you go, the more that you're driven. If you're doing, say, 10 hours, 12 hours of work a day, barely getting any sleep, that ultimately you're less productive.
Right.
That you're productive for a window of time
Right.
within each day, and that you absolutely need to take breaks and give yourself self-kindness, self-love, and physical breaks to actually be at your most productive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thank you. And I'm going to just add one piece. I love, like, you're
Nice.
so positive and you have your, like, beautiful purple. I'm going to add a slight, so the other thing that studies have been showing is that some people's drive towards productivity comes from death anxiety, which we don't have to go too much into now, but and it can be both. I mean,
Yes.
I hear it is because,
Yes.
right, if this death anxiety is also connected to the worthiness and what have I accomplished, but so just adding that piece, but yeah.
I love that. And I want to add to that as well is that recognition. It could be death anxiety. It could be anxiety in many different ways. And clients that I work with around anxiety, like the idea of who would you be without anxiety?
Yeah.
It can feel like, well, one, I don't know who I am without anxiety. And two, there's this belief that my anxiety is what motivates me. My anxiety is what drives me. If I didn't have anxiety, I wouldn't do anything with my life. So yeah, I totally hear you on that.
Yeah. And then you just said something else. Oh, the other thing I wanted to add, and I totally, this idea of rest, I think is so important. And I love how you talk about it in the book. And I want to add, I worked in hospice and we always use this term quality of life. And I
Mhm.
also think when you take this breaks, it gives you, I'm going to say quality of life, whether you're able to do a 1 minute meditation or you do a little walk or you get whatever it is, right? But I feel like these breaks, I don't know, I just like adding to, I mean, I think quality of life is rest, these are in the same kind of bucket, right? Yeah.
Yes. And I think, right, you're speaking on something very important that, again, back to the why do we do these things? Why are we so driven? Why dot dot dot?
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, it really is that we want to have a quality of life. And that, right, that's different for each person. But what does quality of life mean? Oh, I can relax. I can feel inspired, but I can also relax. I can sit on a Sunday afternoon, for example, right, by the window, sipping my tea and reading my favorite book. And actually, in that, say, hour, actually feel fully content, not reaching for my phone or thinking about my emails that I need to write tomorrow. But just, right, I feel like for most people, an aspect of their quality of life is actually feeling relaxed and content when they have those chosen moments to really just be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we really, well, I'm like, we have so much to cover. It's okay. So you talked about acquainting the body and mind every day, which you've already started to talk about. And I do want to see if I can find HTBR. What page?
Yes.
Page 52.
Yes.
Yeah, I love
Head
that.
to body ratio.
Head to body ratio. So you kind of started to talk about this, but let's oh, and then determining, and you have a beautiful chart here of how you determine your, oh, and yes, head to body ratio. Love this. Will you please talk a little bit about that?
Yes, absolutely. It's sort of funny. I'm like having this vision of when the idea came to my mind. I was like leaving my apartment on the Upper West Side, and all of a sudden, head to body ratio popped into my head, and I was like, oh, here we go. It hopped into my head from my body, all that kind of stuff. But so I learned it. I really learned it through my clients in the sense that that many clients that are experiencing burnout, that are in these high stress type of places, like I was talking about earlier, feel like I don't have time to pay attention to my body. I don't have, right? And so recognizing, okay, what is something that is kind of can be on the fly, that can kind of be compartmentalized, that can be, okay, it's almost like it is subjective, but it almost creates this sense of like an objectivity. Right. And so what I mean by that, let me kind of share what HTB is head to body ratio, is it helps a person take a moment and go, how much of me is living in my head? How much of me is living in my body in this moment? And then I have it split up as like, a bit of like, it's set up like a fraction in the sense that there's the numerator and the denominator. And if I'm not mistaken, the numerator is the head and the denominator is the body, if I'm remembering basic math from back then, right? And so just setting it up as a visual, right? And say out of 100%. So oftentimes, like a common one is, 80, I'm 80 in the head and 20 in my body. So my head to body ratio is 80-20. And so it is more of an awareness practice. It's not oh, hey, kitty. It's not a mathematical equation that you divide your head by your body and then find out how stressed you are. It's much more of just a way for you to check in and allow your head to kind of have a bit of like a chance to really go in and say, okay, my head is going to work right now. How much of me is living in my head? And then therefore, in a sense, of that 100%, how much is living in my body? And it'll take a little while for most people to start to tune into that, but it surprises people for how quickly they can actually tune into that and start to recognize, oh yeah, how much of me is living in my head and how much of me is living in my body. And after a little while, I have clients that could do it in, say, 20 seconds. So, yeah, where they're able to go, okay, what's my HTBR? Okay, 60-40. Got it. Right. So again, it's more of an awareness practice, not it's good or bad to be more in your head or more in your body necessarily. It's much more of that, or just that one of those daily practices that you can do on the fly that kind of has like a structure and kind of has a fun factor to it. How much of me is in my head right now? How much of me is my body right now? Okay. And then continuing to move on with your day. But it's that integration of that feedback loop, the reminder with your body and mind is, oh, yep, I'm checking in with my body every single day.
Yeah. And I think I love that. And I think that it's true. It's bringing that awareness. And it also reminds me a little bit, sometimes I'll do a diary with people, a diary. I don't know where it's like, how many times did you feel anxious? Or sometimes we'll do it with grief. So just kind of that awareness. I also want to say that I think the cat was 100% in their body. The cat was like, I want to get pet right now. And it wasn't thinking, but that's okay.
Oh, yes. I mean yes, absolutely. Being able to see our pets and see animals, they're a beautiful example of an embodied lived experience.
He's like, why is she not petting me?
Yes, I'm going to ask for what I need.
So that's great. I love that. I had put like a bunch of stars around the HTBR. So going into the next part of it, you mentioned, and I like this, celebrate the gradual process of change. I put three things together: stuck, stress, and you use the example of the green smoothie. I don't know if you want to talk about those separately, or I don't know if they all do go together. You tell me.
Let's see. Let's do them maybe one at a time, and then maybe they'll integrate. So can you repeat number one, please? I think I was still thinking about your cat.
So you wrote, celebrate the gradual process of change.
Yes.
Hope, genuine laugh, a few hints, and I love you. Celebrate was in a little box down here too. So you're right. That was one piece. Because I do, with clients, I do think this is really important, like day by day or week by week. Hey, I even say in therapy is what's working, what's not working, but also what is working, right?
Yes.
What, even if or we'll say like practice with something smaller, I don't know, setting a boundary with your mom is big, but can you set a boundary with your cat when you're on a Zoom? Anyway, so yes, if you want to talk about that one.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. So yeah, it's aspects of what you're saying there is we are adaptable beings, right? So we can not easily, but we can create change in our lives by setting intentions, by taking actions in all different ways, by receiving support from others, as well as the internal support that we have. So we're actually oftentimes making more progress than we realize. So it's like we're adaptable. So that becomes the new baseline normal. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I am a little bit less stressed. Oh yeah, I am in my body more, but so what? Because I haven't reached my big goal of totally eradicating burnout, or I haven't reached my big goal of whatever it is. And so it can feel very defeating. And then our bodies and our neurochemistry and everything can just feel like, oh, this is no fun. Why am I even doing this? Why am I trying? Right? It can create more of all of the emotions, the thoughts, and behaviors that keep us feeling more stuck.
Yeah.
And so when we remember to go, well, wait a minute, actually, what is working? If I think about what my lived experience was, say a month ago, what is my lived experience now? And how may have that shifted? What are some things that I'm doing differently? Or what are some ways that I'm feeling differently? Or how is my body experiencing life differently? And so remembering to, yes, celebrate and acknowledge the small wins not only keeps us motivated for the bigger goals, which that's great, but I'm a big fan of it just getting back to the quality of life piece, that when we celebrate it in the moment, our lived experience is just that much bubblier, that much, the word bubblier came to mind, so that's the one I gave, but sparkly, just excited, more like, yeah, I'm living today. This is my life today. Yes, I get to be here now, versus it being, yeah, I'm in this new place, but I'm not even acknowledging that it's my new place. And it feels pretty humdrum, ho-ha, because I haven't reached the big goal. So yes, acknowledging that we get used to our new norm rather quickly. And it can be a gradual thing to where it comes in and all of a sudden we're in this new space. And again, it just feels like the new normal. And so the mind can be telling us like, yeah, we're still not good enough. We're not doing all these things. We haven't reached our goals. But actually, we've taken tremendous steps and we are a new person today. So let's celebrate that, enjoy it now, as we're continuing to be excited about the person that we're becoming tomorrow, the next day, the next month, that type of thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I will even say, I've worked with a few clients who, even in the moment, they don't even always recognize. And I'll say, wait a minute, let's, stop, and they'll say, oh yeah, you're right. Or, so I just think that's important. I just wanted to add that piece. Like you said,
Vitally important.
yeah, reflecting back to them, like, yeah. So I thought that was so great. I'm looking at tips, but I did want to go to the smoothie, the green smoothie.
Yeah.
Why did I write the green smoothie? I was really excited about the green smoothie. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. And you wrote it right next to one of your, yeah. Do you want to talk about, I have like 4 stars next to it.
Sure. Well, I love that you have 4 stars next to it, so it resonated with you. And yeah, it was really just a personal experience that I had that felt like such a beautiful metaphor. So there was a period of time where I was making a lot of green smoothies. So it had, kale and other yummy green things. And then I would also add a bit of frozen mango into it, right? To just add a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of brightness, all that kind of good stuff. Because I probably wouldn't stick to it if it was just strictly green. So I went, it was sort of like, this is basically a story of recognizing habitual ways of doing things. And then also recognizing that you don't have to be working so hard to receive the results that you want. So I was heading towards my freezer, as I had done every morning for a while at that point. And I get the frozen mango out of the refrigerator. The frozen mango was a Trader Joe's bag, and I had closed it with an elastic band. And I noticed that I was starting to take the elastic band off from the mango, where like my shoulders were really tight around my ears. I was like pulling. Yeah. I mean, even doing this right now, right? You're probably feeling the tension in
Like,
your body. I'm feeling it in mine as I'm talking about it. Maybe the listeners are feeling it, but I was just just pulling it off. And then I realized, I don't need to be working this hard. What is going on? So I took a breath, dropped my shoulders, and then effortlessly took the elastic band off of the mango bag. And it was such a beautiful reminder for myself that, right, that we don't have to work as hard as we often think that we do, and that our bodies take on these habitual memories of how to do things. So my shoulders were up. I was feeling the tightness of it. And then when I acknowledged, okay, wait a minute, my shoulders are up. I'm feeling not major stress in my body, but my body is feeling a stress response because of the tightness. But can I just notice?
mhm.
Can I take a breath? Can I relax into my experience? And then is there an easier way to move forward with this current moment?
So I loved that. And I think hearing it also reminds me of how I try to talk about mindfulness.
Mhm.
To me, this is kind of the definition of mindfulness as well.
Yes.
I'm aware of what I'm doing. I can recognize it, and maybe I want to do it a little different. Anyway, I just wanted to add that piece into it.
Absolutely, yes. And I know you know this with mindfulness, but it reminds me of the piece of there's formal mindfulness meditation
Right.
practices, right? The
Yeah.
formal ones being, I'm going to set my insight timer and I'm going to sit down for 10 minutes and be with that. And then there's the informal mindfulness practices, which I love. I think both are really helpful, sort of like the formal mindfulness really primes us for the day. And then the informal ones being such as, oh, how's my body feeling right now? What is my HTBR? Can I feel the sun against my skin? Right? It's those moments where we actively choose to pay attention to what's going on for us in that moment. So yeah, the formal and informal mindfulness practices are so valuable. And again, just brings us back to the quality of life. We're not doing this to become better meditators. We're not doing this to whatever it is. I mean, people can do it for all different reasons, but ultimately, again, I think when people check in with themselves, usually it's I want to live in a way that feels more calm yet inspiring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this reminds me of when I was doing my formal training, when they talked about burnout for clinicians, but I think I mean, it doesn't matter
Yes.
that the meaning as we had talked about is also finding meaning in your life prevents burnout. And I think even what you're saying about this mindfulness, these little pieces of quality of life contribute to quality of life and meaning, to me, fall into this kind of category. I don't know. I just went on a little
Yeah.
meta tangent. I'm not sure. What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Again, right? Kind of like understanding the why we're doing things. And then it helps us to reevaluate what does matter, what is important, how do I maybe want to progress forward with life? Because yes, we want meaning, we want purpose. And it's recognizing that, and in a sense, to get even headier, right? To get more meta. And why do we want meaning? Why do we want purpose, right? And in a lot of ways, it's that recognition of how do I want to feel, right? How do I want to feel? Again, I'm just using calm yet inspired because that I think is just a helpful piece around burnout is calm yet inspired, but really recognizing the chosen reasons of why we do things, why it matters to us, really helps us to inform how we want to be in relationship to other people, how we want to be in relationship to ourselves, how do we want to be in relationship to our work, how do we want to be in relationship to the natural world, and in all of these ways. And I think that in and of itself can be a helpful roadmap to help someone feel, moving forward in their life, because life can feel very chaotic and stressful in a lot of different ways. But when we can really tap into that quality of life, of meaning, of purpose, and I just had another thought, is it can feel like, well, what if I don't have purpose and I haven't found my purpose and I haven't found meaning? You can kind of go, let's come back to the today, what feels fulfilling, right? What to you helps you to feel that sense of aliveness, and knowing that I do really want my days, not just my entire life or when I'm on my deathbed, to be like looking back and go, wow, that was a great life. But really today, how do I want to be interacting with myself and the world?
I love it. And I think one of the reasons that I loved your book so much, I'm sure, is because I think a lot of the things that you talk about and you say are things I know, a lot of therapists know, even some of my clients already know, but you did such a good job of describing them and really kind of explaining it. And your editors and your people did a great job of like laying it out. And so I just think, like I said, a lot of this is information, some of us might kind of know, but it's really well presented. Anyway, I just brought us back to the beginning, but I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I think that that's a key piece, and actually an aspect near the beginning of my book. I speak of the idea of book knowledge and embodied knowledge, right? Because many of us, especially therapists, but also clients, people, humans, are becoming more savvy and self-aware, which is a wonderful thing. And also, we can get caught up in intellectually knowing a bunch of stuff. And right. And that brings in the defense of intellectualizing. So it can be like, oh, I already know that. Oh, yeah. But then also really reminding ourselves that no matter how well we know something, that we can know it on a deeper and deeper level, our mind, body, and spirit. It can land in our body in new ways as we step into these newer versions of who we are.
I love that. Yeah. I think you're right. The book really kind of embodies. Anyway, I just got us off of. So one thing I want to say, I loved you wrote, I'm going to say this. I wrote recognizing breathing. And then in quantum terms, human beings are comprised of more than 99.9999999% of space. I need just for a minute. Do you want to touch on that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Is recognizing, it's an interesting thing, right? In our three-dimensional world, our three-dimensional acknowledgement, everything feels so real. It feels so tangible. Even our thoughts feel real, and our emotions feel real. And it's not that you're not experiencing them as real and valid in the moment, but the recognition that that's not all that we are. And so our healing capacity is actually much bigger and expansive than we in our three-dimensional realm tend to think in and be in. And with that said, it reminds me of the idea of like spiritual or psychological bypassing, right? The idea that we can go into, oh, full gratitude, love and light. Oh yeah, my body's uncomfortable, but it doesn't matter because I'm a light being, or I'm having these emotions, but I can ignore them or send them love and just keep stepping into my quantum energy type of a thing, right? So there's a shadow side to choosing just energetically, let me just float out into the ethers of my 99.9999999% space. But it's an important tool to remember that we have the capacity to shift and change, and that it's our emotions, our thoughts, and our body sensations that help us to acknowledge the areas, that the density, the challenges that we still need to face as humans, so we can step more into like the true healing. We're not just bypassing it, we're in the true healing of it, while we're also recognizing that we have the capacity within us to shift and change. So even if, and this is big with burnout, even if I feel stuck and dense and like nothing's changing and nothing ever will change, allowing the recognition that it does and it can, and actually things are always changing inside of our bodies and externally, even if it doesn't feel like we are. So a lot of ways why I speak on that quantum healing piece is allowing that to be a piece of the holistic healing. It's not denying by any means our physical sensations, our emotions, our thoughts, but it's also creating that extra space and not buying into every thought as truth, every emotion as having deep meaning that we get that we're then stuck in, or for even the body sensations to be really stuck in them. More of that expansive way of going, this is my lived experience in this moment. And I'm also changing, and in any moment my life can actually be different.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it reminded me, balance is I'm here, to me, I'm interpreting a lot of about balance.
Mhm.
And I worked in end of life for so long, and what came up when you were talking is the idea. I think it's just important a lot of times when we at end of life, we remember we are spiritual beings in a human body, because it's the whole experience, particularly at end of life. And I know we're talking about something a little different here, but even just remembering, because the spiritual bypassing, it has to be connected to both. It is yes, there is a lot of spirituality at end of life, and there's a lot of, which I've talked about in other episodes, this physical. So just that balance of it. But I think you said it in such a beautiful way, and you really are taking that idea and really putting it into, how we're going to use that, work with that with our burnout and today. So I just wanted to add that piece.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, we won't go on too much of a tangent. I'm actually seeing the time. I wonder about even doing like a to be continued second episode.
I think we're going to have to, because we're on page 57. So I think we might have to do a episode 2.
I love that. I
Okay,
love that.
wonderful. So knowing we're going to do that, maybe we can, yeah. And I have all these notes, and we didn't even get through like the second part. So thank you for that really great idea, right?
Thank you. Thank you for being open to it. I thought, you know what? I know that we have so much to cover, and I appreciate and love your passion for your work with clients, and also the work that I'm offering and what this book offers for work. So I love that we're going through all of it. And I can speak a lot about every single piece as you can as well. So I recognize, I'm like, well, this sounds like it's more of a to be continued than not.
So and I agree. So we're excited. So thinking about how we might want to, yeah, we really only, yeah, we're going to wrap up in a few minutes here, and we will definitely do a second. I know there's just so many things we didn't get to. So I'm just looking, is there something we want to wrap up with? I wrote the physical benefit. Well, can we just do two quick topics before we end? Forced to finesse. Forced to finesse. Why did I write? Where is that? Forced to finesse. It was right around here. Oh, think of it as moving from force to finesse, which is the utilization of the body. This is page 59, in more energy efficient ways to decrease stress and enhance overall breathing. Oh, it was related to breathing, body focused breathing and shallow breathing. I don't know. I was very excited about that.
I love it. I love it. Well, and a simple answer I can provide at the moment is going back to the green smoothie mango metaphor, right? It's like when you notice how hard am I struggling to do something, and whether it's sure maybe it's making a smoothie, but maybe it's the traffic that you're in your car, maybe it's you're in the kitchen cooking, maybe you're writing a challenging email that has to go out in an hour, or whatever it is, right? Noticing, how is my body holding stress right now? Because the body's going to tell you in some way there's tension. And so, can I notice the tension? Can I breathe into it? And that tends to offer a little bit more flow. And then being able to, and it doesn't have to be a picture perfect. Oh, I went from, being just totally stuck to finesse, right? It's not necessarily just a black and white thing, but that acknowledgement that it can, right? That I can be in one place and then take a breath. And can I? What would a little bit more finesse look like in this moment? So it's really that very body oriented way where the body is giving you that information that you're holding stress and making things a bit harder than you need to. And then can I allow the body to relax a little bit through my breath, through softening, to move towards finesse.
Yeah. And I love that. And I agree. I think I just, for some reason, that really stuck with me, that idea of like force to finesse. I really like that. So I'm going to borrow that with a lot of my clients.
Good.
That's a really good one. Actually, I'm going to borrow it for myself too.
Yeah.
And the traffic one, I mean, the examples you give are great. They're real life. And last week, two clients talked to me about traffic. So, I mean, this is real, this is like people really are, these are real helpful things.
Yeah.
So maybe we can, I don't know why I loved this. Maybe we can wrap up with, I wrote the physical benefits of visualization, and then I put like 6 exclamation points. So this is on page 6. So you wrote it next to your body as a safe base, which I loved. And then there was this really nice little piece right here, the physical benefits of visualization. Oh, and then I wrote, I didn't know, with an exclamation point. So I was just really excited to learn something new, apparently.
Good.
Do you want to talk for a minute about that? And then maybe we'll wrap up.
Sure. And actually, it ties into, I would say, a bit around the force to finesse aspect of it. And I'm glad that this was a segue, because I was thinking about this as we were talking about the force to finesse, where there's a lot of power in, even if we don't do something different externally, the idea of visualizing and connecting your body into that idea of like, what is force? What does force feel like? We could even visualize. And some people are more visualizers, and some people are right, more like feelers. So it doesn't even have to be that you have a strong visual of what it looks like necessarily. And I'm saying that, for folks that don't necessarily, they're not able to visualize as well. You can still do this, but it's more the idea of recognizing right. If you want to say go from force to finesse, yes, maybe outside of your life and behaviors, yes, but also, and a very important practice is visualizing. What does force feel like? Maybe you're pushing against a wall, so you picture yourself or maybe you have to move this heavy thing or whatever it is, and you just picture yourself pushing. That's force. I'm forcing it. And what does that feel like in my body, energetically, etc.? And then starting to ask yourself, visually, how could I recognize, even if I couldn't do this in physical form, but how could I maybe move this visual of a wall or this heavy item? oh, what if I backed up a little bit, gave it some space? What if I was able to push it? Maybe I put even rollers underneath it, making it even more actual physical 3-dimensional. What if I put rollers underneath it? Oh, and then just pushed that wall. Or I asked for a friend's help and the two of us moved it together. So that visualization, it doesn't even have to be happening in real life, but that okay, what is it? What is it that feels that forceful force? And then visualizing what could it be that creates more of a finesse. And then that exercise of going, wow, how does that feel different in my body? How does that feel different in my consciousness when I acknowledge what force whew, looks and feels like, and what something more like finesse looks and feels like?
So one of the reasons I love this, and I actually do a lot of visualizations with my clients. And like you said, some people are more feelers but I really do a lot of it. And so I think this for me, I was like, wow, I never thought of this. I didn't know this is another piece of adding into the visualization. So I thought it was just really helpful to like I said, adding into another visualization or another piece for people. And even as you were just talking, I'm like, oh, I know something I could do for myself to do that. I mean, this really resonated. So I love this because I love visualizations, and this was really kind of taking it I don't know, a step further, or another form of visualization I think could be really beneficial for people.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And it ties into that embodied visualization, right? We can stay from our neck up in visualizations, right? Especially because our eyes are in our head. And so when we think of visualizing, we think of it being more, right? One, we think of it neck up, but also in our eyes, right? So it can be, not always, but it can be more of that neck up experience. But remembering that we are integrated mind, body, spirit, and the holistic, bringing it back to the holistic healing approach as well. How can we use visualization in a way that incorporates more of an embodied experience and an embodied shift along with that?
So I love that. And like I said, I learned something. I mean, I learned something new. I love this. This is something I want to incorporate. And as I was saying, so many, your book really, it does a beautiful job. And as I just said before, of explaining or talking about things some of us know, or some of us might already know, but it does it in such a really wonderful way. And the presentation, as you said, is just so, digestible for clients, therapists, for everybody. So I think that's one of the reasons it just really resonated.
Mm.
And I have recommended it to many people. Like I said, it's great. So thank you so much, Charlene. I really appreciate your time and your knowledge, and it's really wonderful. And we will definitely have to do we definitely have to do part two.
And maybe part 3, who knows?
Yes, we'll go with the flow, right?
Mhm.
Um, all right.
Oh,
Well,
thank you, Carolyn, so much for all of this, for asking me to come on your podcast, for connecting with me, for connecting with my book, for offering it out into the world. I really appreciate it all.
okay. Okay. So everybody who's watching, stay tuned. There will be a part two. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.